to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. I hope you're all good. We have got a lot to get through this week because, well, it's been a bye week, which means we've got about 3 things to talk about. But that doesn't matter. Do you know what? We're going to double up on episodes this week. We're going to try and hit 2 a week from now on. We're good to you guys, right? We've had some big guests. We've had Kyle Brandt. We've had Mike Kay. We've had some big names. We're going to get more. But to do that, we need your support. So if you are new around here, if this is your first time and you're listening thinking, wait, why am I listening to a British kid talking about the Eagles in an insanely high-pitched voice? I need you to hit that subscribe button down below. If you're on YouTube or anywhere else, there is a link in the description that will take you to Apple Podcasts. If you own an Apple device, hit subscribe on there. It takes 2 seconds, it's completely free, and it means you get each episode delivered straight to your device for free, instantly, whenever it's up. No more checking sub boxes, no more checking Twitter, it's right there. And if you rate it 5 stars, if you ever want to do anything to support what we do or support this show, rate that programme 5 stars, because that would be the most amazing thing. It means the world to me, and it means that we can grow our audience. The more listeners we have, the more cool things we can do, the bigger guests we can have on, the more stuff we can give away to you guys for free. And there are some cool things we are working on in that very vein. So don't go anywhere. If you're new, I need you to show that support. Hit subscribe. But before we get into the bye week, I need to say a big thank you, because we've hit 2 big milestones. Well, 3 big milestones, I suppose. One of them is that the Outside Insider podcast, as of last week, has its ratings displayed on iTunes, which, I mean, is pretty cool, right? Look, I've even got sound effects now. This is how much we're moving up in the world. We've got sound effects. But to have ratings displayed, obviously, is a good indicator to you guys. Secondly, 4,000 YouTube subscribers. That is insane to me. Thank you so much for all of the support on that front. You guys have been killing it lately. It's been amazing giving you these film rooms. I even treated you to 2 film rooms last week as well. So I hope you enjoyed those. If you haven't, there's one on Golden Tate. There's one on Avonte Maddox. They're both over at our YouTube channel. So 4,000 subscribers. You guys are the best fans on the planet. I cannot thank you enough for all of your support. And thirdly, I published my 3,000th article for Philly Sports Network. So for those of you who are somewhat decent at maths, unlike myself, over a 4-year span, it works out just over 2.5 articles per day, which blows my mind. You know, I've been doing this since I was 19. I'm now 23, and I dread to think how many words that is, but 3,000 articles, that's a lot. And I'd like to think that I've grown quite a lot in that time. I've learned way more about myself in the last year. I think I've hit puberty in the last 6 months, if I'm brutally honest with you. But to be in this spot and have written 3,000 articles, like, I remember if I go back and read my first ever piece and compare it to now, I'm sure it's changed dramatically. So thank you if you've been on this journey with us. If you've just hopped on the train, don't worry, we're going to some exciting places and we want you to be a part of it. But we don't have sponsors, so instead you just get me getting a bit emotional and thanking you for all the support, because without you guys, there wouldn't be a reason for me to shout behind a microphone every week, and you've given me that and the reason to write 3,000 articles, which, should I have a social life? That is an important question. Maybe not, who knows, the grind is real. But we are going to move on to some Eagles related news, and of course the big headline coming out of Eagles camp this week was that the team traded a 2019 third round pick for Golden Tate. And a lot of people are viewing this move differently. Some very excited about the proposition of a veteran wide receiver who can help some of the younger guys grow. Others see it as obviously what is essentially a short-term rental, given that Tate essentially, according to numerous sources, actually declined a contract extension from the Detroit Lions. Now, the way I look at this, and I want to put it into analogy if I may, is if you need a new car, if your old car is breaking, you know, and you're trying to run the same thing to work every day and it's taking you a bit longer, you've got to fill up for more fuel, the brake light's hanging off, your wing mirror's gone, something's not quite right, you know you need a new car. In an ideal world, if you need a new car, you would go out and buy the nicest, sleekest, sexiest looking BMW you could. You would buy a nice Audi, a nice hairdresser's car, an Audi TT. But you can't do that if you don't have the money. If you don't physically have the money, you can dream and you can want it as much as you please, but no matter how many things you have to sell in that house, is it really worth it to give up for a car where, if it breaks down, that expense is even more? You know, if you crash on the way home because you're a bad driver, I'm sure that a repair part for a BMW is going to be much more than the the weird rust box you're driving at the moment, right? So instead of changing the product or the mentality that I need a new car, you change the reason. Now, you know you don't have the ammunition to get that nice sleek supercar that's going to make you look the coolest kid in the town. But what you could do is go for a car that will give you a slightly different benefit, but for the exact same reward for a lot less. Now, it may not be the fastest 0 to 60 car in the world. It may not be the nicest looking car in the world, although I'm sure Golden Tate is a lovely looking man. But what that car will do is get you from point A to point B faster than you currently are. It's going to bring you a similar benefit. Maybe it's even got the same car seats, the same interior. Maybe it's an older model BMW. And while it's not a Sprinter, it's going to have one feature that to use, you know what, I can use that. Maybe it's got a bit of trunk. Is it a trunk, you guys? We call it a boot. Where you can put more things in, who knows? But the point is, you don't go out and break the bank for something you can't have, as opposed to just slightly moulding your approach, slightly changing it a little to get what you do. And that's what the Eagles got with Golden Tate. Now, of course, the reports were out that they wanted Robbie Anderson, and who can blame them? He is a pure deep threat. He's executing well for the New York Jets, but given that they have no wide receivers at the moment, it's hard to really imagine them wanting to part with that for any other reason. But the thing is, they couldn't get Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, 24 years old, 2 Pro Bowl seasons, he has got the world ahead of him, but that guy has got work ethic problems. Numerous sources told me that the love of the game isn't there anymore. And Dallas bid against themselves, broke the bank, were narrow-sighted, didn't see the bigger picture, and brought in a troubled young wide receiver. Now, the upside is tremendous if they can harness it. If not, that's an expensive repair. The Eagles knew, okay, we can't afford Robbie Anderson. He's too valuable to the Jets. We can't afford Amari Cooper because John Gruden is doing John Gruden things. So why don't we go a different direction? Why not rent a car until we can afford a better one? Golden Tate averages 7.5 yards per target, 11.8 per reception, and 2.2 yards per route run. Now, where he stands out, obviously, is he averages 6.4 yards after the reception. He is a yak leader. We know that since 2014, he has led the league in yards after the catch. And what has the one criticism been of this Eagles passing offense? That they lack. They lack the yak, so to speak. And Golden Tate will deliver that in abundance. Now, you think of it like, well, why do they need a slot guy? Why do they need yards after the catch? If you can't take the top off a defense, if you can't get a speed threat that 3 or 4 shots a game is going to guarantee you to get open, then why not do what you do best with added upside? Carson Wentz is completing 70% of his passes. He's firing off at a clip that is somehow even more deadly than it was in his MVP level season last year. And a lot of those routes are slants, they're crosses, they're comebacks, they're intermediate options designed to move the offense quickly. The problem is, those players don't really have yards after the catch potential. Although Jordan Matthews explicitly showed it against the Jaguars, it's not reliable. So instead of just throwing a slant and picking up 3 yards, you bring in a player who has the ability to go 0 to 60 very quickly, may not have the top end speed. So you get those extra yards. Instead of having a deep threat where you're throwing it 30 yards, you're going to throw it 7 and still get that same gain. And you're telling me that's not a better option for this offense? That somehow that's bad? Now, I know the obvious concern is, well, who's going to dip out? Someone's got to lose. They can't take out Olshon. Who's going to get this guy's snaps, right? Where's he going to filter into the offense? Especially when the Eagles already have Nelson Aguilar and Jordan Matthews, both of whom are slot receivers. And I'll refer you to a quote from none other than Howie Roseman. No, you have versatility there, said Roseman. I feel like I'm reading a kid's story at this point. It's not good. Maybe this is a second job. I can just read kids' stories in a really annoying British accent. But anyway, all of those guys can play inside and out. There's the excitement that our coaches that have, you're not just having one guy lined up in a particular situation and the defense knows that this guy is going to line up there. For us, that's another part of the excitement, bringing in this guy, his inside-out versatility. It's the same with Nelly. He has inside-out versatility. Olshon lines up inside and out. Our coaches have a game plan for all of those guys, and certainly our tight ends in the middle of the field and the damage that they can do. And we're getting some of our guys back from injury, hinting at Richard Rodgers, which means 13 personnel, jumbo sets are coming back, run the damn ball. Moving on, really quickly, because I just had to get out of my system, I'm sorry. But my point is, it doesn't matter. We see it with the running backs, okay? You kind of go with the hot hand, right? That's how this sort of works. We saw it even with Jay Ajayi last year. It took him 5 games to get double-digit carries. The reason being was that obviously you've got to get acclimated with the offense. You've got to learn the playbook, the terminology. It's a big change, especially coming from Detroit. And as a wide receiver where you're relying on those calls and those signals and the cadence from your quarterback. Now, what we could see is a few targets a game, but in that instance, why not have a bunch of Jordan Matthews, Golden Tate, and maybe Alshon Jeffrey, maybe a tight end, maybe Dallas Goedert, who can block, sustain, and allow Tate to run rampant on a screen. Screens are going to be a huge part of this Eagles offense. In fact, they have already. But there are 2 main features to worry about when it comes to Golden Tate. Not worry about, but at least to be aware of. And that's that we're getting back to that selfless mentality. A lot of people are looking at statistics this year and then wondering why Zach Ertz and George Kittle are being named in the same conversation. This Eagles team has never been about individual excellence under Doug Peterson. Without a running game, the Eagles have relied so much on screens and short passes that against Carolina, they opted to do that instead of running the ball down and draining the clock. And it obviously come back to haunt them. But the point, frankly, is this. You've got another piece there that, if you've seen the film room, you know, runs a lot of up and outs, a lot of slants, a lot of sluggos. It's those double moves which would kill Jalen Mills in practice. I'm sure he cannot wait to get acclimated with Golden Tate. But the point is this. This Eagles offense now has got Nelson Aguilar and Golden Tate, both of whom get used on orbits and sweeps quite frequently, both of whom can do damage from the slot, and Aguilar's seen a role change this year. He's not this deep threat, someone that's being launched down the middle of the field. Someone like Golden Tate would enable him to do that because those linebackers have all of a sudden got to worry about an intermediate runner that can stretch the field with his legs. Nelson Aguilar does it when the ball is in the air. Golden Tate does it once it's in his hands. 2 different types of receiver. Jordan Matthews, a possession guy that can play the Z spot. We saw that last week. This is going to be fun. Don't worry about statistics or snap counts or who misses out on who. Look at the backfield against Jacksonville. That was the league's top-ranked rushing defense, and they decimated them with an undrafted rookie out of Notre Dame. That's how this Eagles team works. It's about who has a hot hand. Carson went through it to 9 different receivers, not including himself. That would be 10. Again, this isn't about individual excellence. Golden Tate's not coming in here to get 1,000 yards. He's coming in here to try and win a Super Bowl. And that is what his inclusion will bring. Up-and-ended versatility, a lot more fun, and guys moving in and around that offense. That we saw it a couple of weeks ago. We saw it against the Giants. Doug Peterson unafraid to get a bit more creative. But also on 3rd down, an area where the Eagles were on 60% last year, they're now on just above 40. It's a big drop. Having that extra wide receiver that can damage you in the intermediate section of the field is going to be a tremendous help. Again, guys, if you are new around here, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button in the description. Get it on Apple Podcasts, rate it 5 stars. Let's blow this show up. Let's get it rolling so we can get more content and more cool things for you guys. That's what this all comes down to. This last 4 years has been an amazing, amazing journey. I know we're just getting started, but the more we can do for you, the better things we can give you, the more, I guess, weaponry we have to do that. And then we can, you know, keep putting this new unique stuff out. But talking of unique stuff, this week itself is quite a special one, right, for Eagles fans? Anyone know why? Anyone know why this week kind of rings a bell? I'll try and give you a little reminder. Give me 2 seconds here.
What's up, Dallas? Kick control of the Cowboys. Last year. Standing up here before you as an undrafted free agent, representing that shield for 15 years. Tonight, I'm representing the Philadelphia Eagles, NFC East champs, divisional champs, NFC champs, and world champs. The world champs. Hey, Dallas, the last time you were in the Super Bowl, these draft picks weren't born.
It never gets old, does it? It never gets old. And of course, the Philadelphia Eagles are facing the Dallas Cowboys this week. Sunday Night Football is back. Carson Wentz back under the limelight, facing Dak Prescott. And a couple of years ago, it was said that these two would be the next big quarterback rivalry, playing each other twice a year. This would be it. And so far, well, it hasn't really been that. We haven't really seen too much of an intense rivalry, I would say. I mean, I think maybe it's to do with the timing of the fixtures. 2016, we had Dallas kind of going off the chains. 2017, it was the Eagles doing the same. This year, Dallas is in a bit of a slump. The Eagles are coming into this game, as I said before, 6-point favourites, already up to 7 at some sportsbooks if you are a betting man. And it's a must-win. They now sit at 500 on the season after a big win against Jacksonville. A big win on the road against the Jags. And then a bye where they can get some of their injured players back. Are we going to see the return of Darren Sproles? Will we see Timmy Jernigan? Who knows? But they face this team, the Redskins defense, who until recently has been one of the best in the league, let's say, in terms of defending the run, has been the main talking point. But we're not talking about the Redskins right now. We're not talking about the Giants and Saquon Barkley. We're talking about Dallas. And this is a game the Eagles simply have to cover and come away with a win. As we say, it's Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys haven't exactly enjoyed the greatest start to their season so far. Is this the year that the Eagles get it done? Because if they don't, if they somehow drop one of these games, there's going to be trouble. Now, the Monday night game that we're going to see tonight, if you're just watching this against the Titans, that's going to be significant. If Dallas drop that, that could be the dream crusher. The Eagles can come in, clean up, and then turn their attentions. Because there are only really 2 NFC East games that are circled in red at this point. They're both against Washington. One is in Week 17 and could well decide the fate of the NFC East champion. To do that, though, they've got to put teams away. Something they did against Jacksonville, but they struggled to do against this Titans team and against, of course, the Carolina Panthers. This is going to be a big game for the Eagles. The Cowboys will be on a short week, but they are struggling. And the stats say it all. But the biggest now, I guess, circle point is going to be what's Amari Cooper going to do against Jalen Mills or Ronald Darby. The way you've got to look at this Dallas team is simple. The Dallas offense is very different now. If we take a look back, and you can actually scrape these numbers, there's a great app called NFL Scraper, but you look at the number of targets versus the expected points, you know, that what they bring to the table from those. The top 3 who were close to 100 targets were Cole Beasley, Dez Bryant, Jason Witten in 2016 that was. Cole Beasley, Dez Bryant, Jason Witten. Williams was there, and then Ezekiel Elliott a little bit further behind. None of those first 3 are on the team anymore. The Dallas offensive line is struggling tremendously. Dak Prescott does not look like the quarterback that he did in that 2016 season. So what's going on with the Cowboys offense? Does anyone know? Is it the lack of a receiving option? Is it Dak Prescott? Is it the offensive line? It's something where people have been questioning all year. Is it Jason Witten and the Cowboys offense being just so, not predictable in a way, but I suppose it is in another. They don't use a lot of pre-snap motion. They're a very stagnant team. And a lot of players now, a lot of offenses, as we see with the Eagles even, will send players out in motion just to try and get a read, get the quarterback some extra help. The Cowboys last year had 440 snaps of offense through 7 games. Only 90 used pre-snap motion. So what you see is what you get, essentially. Which says a lot about why I suppose the offense is maybe malfunctioning. There's a lot of signals. There's no real mystery behind it. If a receiver lines up against you, he's probably going to run your way. Now, that's great and all, okay? But the thing is that NFL defenses have caught on to is that there's a player in that Dallas backfield by the name of Ezekiel Elliott. And he happens to, albeit a little bit sassy, be very good at this thing called football where he runs and carries the ball. So teams have started stacking an extra defender in the box. And this has forced the Dallas Cowboys to pass a little bit more than regular. To try and take advantage of those situations, as Scott Linehan once said, that those spread formations where they're using two outside receivers, they're passing it close to 70% of the time, and it's getting nowhere. They're not taking advantage of defenses falling into their lap to defend. That's what you want. If you're a power running team, they're gonna stack the box to stop the running back, and finally, the passing attack opens. Only now, there is no Jason Witten, there is no Des Bryant, and now you've got an Amari Cooper who we don't know is gonna factor. You really don't know what's going to happen. Even on play action, a hard play fate was 27% in the opening 7 games of the season. They are struggling to move the ball offensively. And no one really knows exactly what's going on. There's a lot of different reasons for it. Without diving deep into the film, it's hard to suggest. But the one thing I'll say is this. The Eagles boast one of the league's best run defenses. And against the Jags, they finally got it going. If Dallas are going to run a lot of play action, if they're going to move guys around and try and just somehow catch this Eagles offense or defense off guard, they're going to open Dak Prescott up to a whole lot of pressure. And that doesn't bode well for the former Mississippi State product. In fact, Dak Prescott has been pressured more than 23 other quarterbacks in this league close. So he ranks 3rd. My math is terrible, I apologise for that. But he's been pressured on 40% of his dropbacks. What do the Eagles do better than any other team? Force pressure. They may not get the hit, they may not blitz you 24/7, but they will force pressure. And the worst thing with Prescott is that he manufactures most of those pressures by himself by trying to do too much with the ball and trying to move around. Just look at the god-awful play call on that safety that resulted in 6 points that happened the other week. Prescott can be his own worst nightmare. However, he does have a 79.1 passer rating while under pressure, which is the 7th best in the NFL. But the thing is with Dak Prescott, there's almost 2 different sides to him. In weeks 1 to 3, there were 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. In weeks 4 to 7, he's 6-2. Something's changed. And if there's ever a defense to reassert that authority, to get that pressure back to him, it's this one. We can talk all day about Carson Wentz and Golden Tate and the offense who were able to jump out to big leads against the Jags and in the weeks before. The Eagles finally have their offense red hot. They can escape to these big leads and sit on them. That's what this team is designed to do. But it's the defense that has to hold up their end of the bargain. And they have to pressure Dak Prescott. They've got to make him feel the weight of Fletcher Cox. And maybe we'll see Tim Jernigan back. Maybe Haloti Ngata will be a factor once again. Maybe we'll see Josh Sweat break out. But this secondary's got to hold its own. This pass rush has got to get to the quarterback. And if the Titans can do the same, the Titans are a similarly built defense. They have a lot of weight up front, a lot of fluidity, I should say, in the defensive backfield. Watch this game closely on Monday night and just see how the Titans approach this. Dallas is going to be a tricky opponent. They always are. Whether they're 2-7, 1-9, or 9-1. They're always going to play this game close because there's a divisional rivalry there. This game means something. It's bigger than just a game. It's the same with the Giants. It's the same with the Redskins. You can't walk into it expecting a blowout. There's going to be bad blood between both of these teams. Pressure is going to be the name of the game. We know that Dak Prescott, as we said, has this almost facade where on one hand he's a guy that's turning the ball over too much, and on the other, he can be as surgical as they come, as dangerous with his legs as they come. The Eagles have to force the first one. That all comes with pressure. It all starts up front and taking advantage of an offensive line that's a little bit banged up and has struggled to find its form over the last few weeks. We're going to get deep into this game over the next few days though, so don't worry too much. There'll be plenty of content on Philly Sports Network. These were just initial thoughts on this game of what are the areas of focus. We're going to get much deeper, as we say, with articles and film room videos and all the rest of it. There's going to be a specific one on Dallas dropping a little later this week, so be sure to stick around for that one. But before we kick this off, there's one more point that we want to talk about here, and that is, are the Eagles going to somehow conjure up a playoff run now? How far can this team go? That's the question. And it's a rightful one to ask. They now sit at 500. They saved themselves. I really think that the game against Carolina was a must-win. They dropped that. That's going to sting them undoubtedly in terms of whether it's mentality or the actual win-loss column more importantly. It allowed Washington to escape to a 1.5 game lead. That's now back down to 1 after yesterday where Atlanta seemingly dismantled Washington. However, the point remains the same. Moving on from the Jags, as we say, we know we've got Dallas coming up. Then it's a game against Drew Brees and the Saints, who just surgically destroyed the Los Angeles Rams. Now that is a little bit interesting, isn't it? That was Jared Goff versus Drew Brees in a game that many were very excited for. Two explosive offensive powerhouses. How do you stop Alvin Kamara? How do you stop Drew Brees? How do you stop Michael Thomas? That game is going to be a shootout. In every sense of the word, that is going to be a shootout. And that will be the game where this whole Carson Wentz clutch argument is going to come into play. Is Carson Wentz clutch? Can he get a game-winning drive? This game has got the potential to be an 80-point, 90-point game. But it has to start with Carson Wentz matching Drew Brees toe for toe, stride for stride. Jared Goff couldn't do it. Todd Gurley couldn't do it. The Eagles have a depleted backfield and a quarterback completing 70% of his passes. That's going to be a magical game. But can a 7-1 Saints team fight off the Eagles, who are scrapping to save their season? Because if they drop that game, the Giants may sniff blood on the water in Week 12. November 25th, New York Giants at home. That should be a must-win. That should be in the books as a win. There's got to be a trap game on this schedule somewhere. If the Eagles drop that, that is going to be a key game. Because if the Eagles drop it, or any one of those three, of the Cowboys, the Saints, and the Giants, they then face the Redskins at home on Monday Night Football. And we know that the Redskins, who are coming off that loss to Atlanta, and now they've got to do some saving of their own. Because they're one game ahead of the Eagles. There's a lot left of this season. There's half of the season remaining. And their next 3 games aren't exactly much better. Bucks, Texans, Cowboys, Eagles. That's the next 4. They've still got the Jags and the Titans as well. But the Bucks and the Texans could be problematic for that team. At Tampa Bay, depending on how Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston plays. And then you've got that Texans defense, where for the first time, Alex Smith couldn't really do much. 14 points against the Falcons wasn't good enough. So their second lowest of the year. They had obviously a bit of a struggle earlier on. But no, that is their lowest points total. So I beg your pardon. Lowest points total of the year. Can they rebound from that? The Eagles then move on to face the Cowboys again. And then it's the Rams. Those last 3 weeks, Rams, Texans, Redskins. That will be the deciding fate of, are this team going to go to the playoffs? It's a tough schedule. That is a very, very tough schedule. And if there is ever a chance for this Eagles team to reignite that underdog mentality, to get back to being those 53 angry men once again, it is right now. They cannot afford another mistake. They have had the Super Bowl hangover. They've had the day in bed. They've had the day of watching Friends episodes and eating pizza and recovering and self-pity and feeling sorry for themselves. Now it's time to get up and work. Because if they don't, this season's going to collapse and it's going to get away from them very, very quickly. Those 2 games against the Redskins are going to be catalysts of change. The 2 wild cards there are the Rams and the Saints. Still 2 7-1 teams you've got to face. 2 7-1 teams, a flurry of divisional games, and the Texans. It's not an easy schedule. If the Eagles are going to win the NFC East, there is every chance they go on to the NFC Championship. Because if you can beat 2 7-1 teams, there's a very good chance you're facing one of them in the playoffs. You're going to have to get it done. If they can beat either of those teams, momentum will be on their side. And they know what's going to be around the corner. They will carry that into the game, knowing they can get the job done. They can do it in the postseason. But it all comes down to these games. I wouldn't want to say right now whether the Eagles can go all the way or not. I think it's likely to make the playoffs, but they've got to capitalise on Washington dropping the ball. The Eagles left an open court, and LeBron James stormed down and went to dunk and somehow missed. Can they go back the other way and score? We'll find that out in the remaining 8 games. Don't forget, guys, we're going to have another episode this week. There's going to be film room videos throughout the week as well. If you're new around here, hit subscribe. Make sure you're subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts. From myself, Liam Jenkins, we'll see you very soon for another episode of The Outside Insider.